The marketplace was never silent. It was always alive with voices, smells, and strange colors. Alien traders shouted about their goods, metal tools, glowing fruits, living pets kept in small glass cages. Yet, on that day, something felt different. The crowd moved in one direction, gathering around the center square. They were not laughing, they were not bargaining. They were whispering. At the center, a small alien girl stood alone. Her skin was pale silver, her large eyes glowing faint. Blue, she shook with fear. Her hands were tied with a thin band of energy, and two guards stood nearby, their long spears glowing red at the tips. No one moved close. No one dared. The people whispered that she was dangerous. Some whispered she was cursed. Others whispered she was not just any child. She was connected to someone powerful. But no one would help her. Then, from the far end of the market, a human man walked in. He looked out of place. Tall, with simple travel clothes, dust on his boots, and a small pack on his shoulder. His eyes moved from shop to shop like a traveler, just searching for food or water. But then he saw the crowd. He saw the girl. The human stopped. The alien girl's eyes met his. She looked terrified, like a cornered animal ready to cry. For a moment, time felt heavy. The guards shifted, noticing the human. The crowd turned to see what he would do. Most expected him to walk away. Humans were weak, outsiders, never part of alien business. No one would blame him if he ignored her. But he did not move away. He stepped forward. The crowd gasped. A human? Going near her? What was he doing? The guards lifted their spears, warning him silently. Yet he walked calmly, not fast, not slow, as if danger did not exist. When he stopped in front of the girl, he reached into his pack. The crowd leaned closer. The guards prepared to strike. The girl held her breath. From the bag, he pulled out a small round object, a simple human toy. He dipped it in a small bottle of soap water, lifted it to his mouth, and blew. Bubbles floated into the air. Soft, round, colorful bubbles sparkled under the twin suns. They drifted gently, catching the light, glowing like tiny rainbow spheres. The crowd gasped again, but now in confusion. What was this? Why was he doing this? The alien girl stared at the bubbles. Her wide eyes followed them as they danced and popped softly in the air. Her trembling slowed. The fear in her face slowly faded into wonder. She reached her bound hands toward one of the bubbles, and it landed on her finger before breaking. For the first time she smiled. The human blew again, filling the air with more bubbles. The guards froze, uncertain. The crowd whispered louder, shocked. The girl laughed softly, a sound no one expected. The human smiled back at her, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. But in the shadows of a high balcony, hidden from the market's noise, someone else watched, the alien queen. Her tall, sharp figure was hidden behind golden curtains, but her eyes glowed brighter than all others. She watched the human closely, her lips tightening, her mind calculating. That child was no ordinary girl. That child was her daughter. And no one, no alien, no soldier, no traitor, had dared to comfort her. Only this strange human with his fragile toy had done it. The queen leaned forward, her sharp nails pressing into the armrest of her throne seat. Her advisors whispered at her side. Should we order his death? Should we take him now? But the queen did not answer. Her gaze stayed locked on the human below, who kept blowing bubbles into the air, calming her daughter like no alien magic or weapon ever could. In that moment something changed. The human did not know. He only wanted to calm a frightened child. He had no idea that every bubble he made was tying a thread, pulling him closer to danger, closer to power, closer to the eyes of the queen herself. The crowd continued to whisper, but no one dared to interfere now. The guards lowered their spears slowly, unsure what order they should follow. The alien girl's smile grew wider, her fear completely gone, and above the queen finally spoke, her voice low but filled with something dangerous. Bring him to me. The words echoed through the palace walls, and the advisors bowed quickly. The human, still blowing bubbles, had no idea his life had already changed forever. The palace was never quiet. Inside the silver walls, voices always carried. Guards whispered. In the long halls, servants hurried with nervous eyes and advisors argued in deep chambers. Yet on this night, silence ruled. Every servant was ordered away. Only the queen remained. She stood before a tall window, the alien city glowing below. From this high tower, she could see everything: the shining markets, the moving lights of ships, the guards at every gate. But her eyes were fixed on one memory: the human. The queen's lips curled in a strange smile. Her daughter had laughed, truly laughed for the first time in months. And it was not because of medicine, not because of power, not because of her own royal command. It was because of soap bubbles carried in the hands of a fragile outsider. The queen whispered to herself, almost like a secret. A human? How strange. Behind her, the heavy doors opened. Her three closest advisors entered, their long robes brushing against the shining floor. They bowed low, but their faces were hard. Your Majesty, one spoke, his voice deep and sharp. We must speak about the human. The queen turned slowly, her long crown glowing faintly. Yes, speak. The first advisor's eyes narrowed. He interfered. He dared to touch what no one should. He stood beside your daughter without permission. For this insult, he should be removed. The second advisor stepped forward, his voice softer, but more dangerous. Humans are weak. They have no place in our courts, no place in our lives. Yet this one draws attention. The people whisper already. If you show mercy, they will see it as weakness. The third advisor, older, leaned on his staff. His voice shook, but his words were firm. Your Majesty, forgive my bluntness, but this human must die. Tonight. The queen listened quietly. Her golden eyes moved from one advisor to the next. Then she spoke, and her words cut through the air like a blade. No. The advisors froze. But, Your Majesty, she raised, her hand silencing them. Not yet. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart, something burned. She had ruled for decades. She had seen humans before, always weak, always desperate, always begging for protection or trade. They had nothing special. But this one was different. He had not begged. He had not feared the guards. He had not even cared about his own safety. He had only cared for the child. Her child. The queen walked to her throne, the silver steps echoing under her feet. She sat, her tall figure glowing in the pale light. Her nails tapped slowly against the armrest. Tell me, she asked softly, what do the people whisper? The first advisor bowed again. They say the girl smiled because of him. They say he touched her heart. Touched her heart? The queen repeated, tasting the words like something dangerous. Yes, the second advisor hissed. If this story spreads, some may think the royal blood is weak, that even a human can calm the royal air when no one else can. The queen's eyes narrowed. A dangerous silence filled the hall. For a moment, even the advisors feared she might unleash her wrath. But then slowly, a small smile curved her lips. Let them whisper, she said. The advisors stared in shock. The queen continued, her voice low and steady. If a human's kindness makes them whisper, then let them whisper louder. Let them wonder why their queen allows him to live. Let them ask why I do not strike him down. Their fear will grow, and in fear, there is power. The old advisors. Staff shook in his hand. But Majesty, do you trust him? The queen's smile faded. Her eyes grew sharp, hard as stone. Trust? No. A queen trusts no one. She leaned back in her throne, her gaze turning distant. But I am curious. He did not bow. He did not tremble. He looked at my daughter not as a royal, but as a child. That is something no one in this palace has dared, not even her own mother. The chamber grew heavy with silence. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. The queen raised her hand. Send watchers. Shadow his every step. If he breathes wrong, I will know. If he speaks foolishly, I will hear. And if he shows weakness, he will die. The advisors bowed deeply. As you command. When they left, the queen turned her eyes back to the glowing city. She whispered to herself once more, her voice so soft even the walls could barely hear. Human, do you know what you have done? You played with bubbles, but you have stirred storms, and now you are mine to watch. Far below, in the crowded streets, the human walked unaware. He carried his small pack, his bubble toy tucked away. To him, it was just a normal night. He had no idea that whispers of his actions had already filled the palace halls. No idea that the queen's golden eyes were fixed on him, studying every step. And no idea that in the shadows, silent figures had already begun to follow. The game had started. He just didn't know it yet. The human walked through the alien city as night fell. Twin moons rose high, throwing silver light across the tall towers and narrow alleys. The streets were quieter now. Traders had packed their stalls. Families locked their doors. Only shadows moved, but the human was not alone. From the rooftops, 3 cloaked figures followed his steps. Their eyes glowed faint green in the dark. Their movements made no sound. To ordinary eyes, the streets seemed empty. To the human, only a strange feeling touched his skin, a crawling sense that he was being watched. He stopped once, turning his head. The street behind him was empty. Just cold air. Just stone. But deep in the shadows, the cloaked figures froze, hidden. The human shook his head. Maybe he was just tired. He carried his small pack tighter against his side and walked on. But the watchers did not stop. One whispered to the other, their voice like smoke in the air. He moves slow. He does not know. Another answered, the queen commands only to watch, not yet to kill. The third narrowed their glowing eyes. Still, he is too calm. Humans are not like this. They followed again. The human turned into a narrow alley. The walls here were close, the stones cracked, the air heavy with the smell of smoke. His boots echoed softly. He reached into his pack and touched the small bubble toy, not because he needed it, but because it reminded him of something simple. Something safe. Then he heard it. A step. Just one. Too close. Too heavy to be the sound of his own boots. The human froze. His heart beat faster. He looked again over his shoulder. The alley was empty, but he knew it was not. His instincts screamed. Someone was there. He spoke into the silence, his voice steady but low. If you're going to follow me, at least do it properly. The shadows did not answer. Instead, one of the cloaked figures dropped from the rooftop, landing softly a few steps away. The other 2 appeared behind him, blocking the exit. The human was trapped. For a moment, no one spoke. The figures only stood, their cloaks hiding their weapons, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The human lifted his chin, his voice calm. So, what now? The one in front stepped closer. His voice hissed like a blade across stone. We are watchers. You are nothing. But the queen wants you alive. For now. The human's brows lifted slightly. The queen. The watcher ignored his question. Do not think yourself safe. Every step we see, every word we hear. If you run, we find you. If you hide, we drag you out. The queen watches through us. The human's hand tightened on the pack strap. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. If she wants me alive, then you won't touch me. That makes me safer than you think. The watchers hissed softly, angry at his boldness. One drew closer, the edge of a blade glinting under the moonlight. But before he could strike, a soft sound broke the tension. Pop. A bubble drifted through the air. The watchers froze, confused. The human had dipped the toy quickly, blowing once, filling the narrow alley with glowing spheres that floated slowly around them. They shimmered under the moons, fragile and bright. The cloaked figures stared, almost hypnotized, like predators distracted by strange light. The human stepped backwards slowly, his face calm, though his chest raced with fear. "If you're going to watch me, then watch this. Because I won't run. I won't hide. Do your job. Just don't get in my way." The bubbles popped one by one, their echoes strange in the silent night. The watchers did not move. Their orders were clear. Observe, not kill, and the human knew it. Finally, the lead watcher spoke again, his voice harder. "You play with toys, human. But toys will not save you when the queen grows tired of you." Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the watchers vanished back into the shadows, leaping onto rooftops, melting into the dark. The alley fell silent again. Only the last bubble drifted, glowing faintly, before bursting on the stone. The human let out a slow breath. His hands shook, though he tried to hide it. He whispered to himself, "So, I was right. Someone is watching." He looked up at the moons. Somewhere far above in her palace, the queen might have been smiling, amused by his courage. Or maybe she was already planning his death. The human didn't know. But one thing was clear. He could not leave. He could not escape. He was already caught in a game much bigger than himself, and now every shadow might carry eyes. Every corner might hold danger. The silent chase had begun. The human awoke to silence. Cold stone pressed against his back. Chains of light bound his wrists. His vision blurred at first, then sharpened. He was not in the city anymore. He was inside something vast, something royal. Tall pillars rose high above him, carved with alien symbols that glowed faint blue. The hall stretched endlessly, walls lined with statues of warriors who had conquered galaxies. The air was heavy, almost alive, as if the palace itself breathed. And at the far end of the hall, on a throne of black crystal, sat the queen. Her crown shimmered under the pale light, sharp as blades. Her golden eyes glowed like suns hidden in shadow. She leaned forward slightly, her lips curved in something between a smile and a warning. The human tried to sit up, but the chains pulled him down. Guards in silver armor stood along the walls, their spears ready. He was surrounded. The queen's voice echoed through the hall, deep, calm, and dangerous. "Human, do you know where you stand?" The human swallowed. His throat felt dry. He answered simply, "In trouble." The guards shifted at his boldness. One even hissed in anger. But the queen raised her hand and silence returned. She tilted her head, studying him. "You are not afraid?" He met her eyes. His heart was racing, but his voice stayed steady. "Afraid? Maybe. But fear won't help me. So, no." The queen leaned back in her throne, intrigued. Strange. Most humans beg. Most cry. You play with toys. Her words cut sharp. The guards chuckled, but the queen silenced them with one look. Her eyes burned into him. "Why did you do it?" The human frowned. "Do what?" Her voice rose, sharp as thunder. "Why did you comfort the girl? Why did you dare touch what no one else dared? You risked death for bubbles. Explain yourself." The hall grew colder. The guards' weapons glowed brighter, ready to strike if he spoke wrong. The human breathed slowly. His mind raced, but he spoke with simple truth. Because she was scared, and no one helped her. That's all. The queen narrowed her eyes. "That's all?" "Yes," he said, steady. "Sometimes, that's enough." The silence that followed was heavier than chains. The queen's face revealed nothing. Her advisors stood near the throne, whispering to her, urging for his death. One hissed, "He insults the crown with his weakness. End him now." But the queen raised her hand again. She stood from the throne, her tall form shining under the alien light. Her steps echoed as she walked closer, each one measured, deliberate. When she stopped before him, she towered above, her eyes glowing like burning suns. She bent slightly, her face close to his. "Do you not understand, human? That girl you comforted is mine, my daughter, the heir to this empire." The human's eyes widened. He had guessed she was important, but not this. The queen's voice dropped lower, colder. "For touching her, I should have your head on this floor." The guards raised their spears at once. The hall vibrated with tension. The human felt the weight of death closing in, yet he still met the queen's eyes. "Maybe," he said softly, "but killing me won't change the fact that your daughter smiled, and maybe she needed that more than I needed my life." The hall froze. Even the guards seemed stunned. The queen stared at him, searching his face for lies. She saw none. Just a fragile creature, daring to speak truth in front of power. Slowly, her lips curved into the faintest smile. Not kind, not soft, but curious, dangerous, interesting, she whispered. The chains around his wrists dissolved, fading into air. The guards stepped back in shock. The queen straightened, her voice carrying through the hall. "This human lives for now." Her advisors protested. "Majesty, this is madness. He will be seen as a weakness." Her gaze silenced them instantly. She looked down at the human again. "But you will not walk free, little outsider. You will stay here under my eye. Every step you take will be watched. Every word you speak will be weighed. You have caught my attention, human. Let us see if you can survive it." The human rubbed his freed wrists, standing slowly. He knew he was not safe. He had not won. He had only been moved from one cage to another. But still, he met the queen's gaze and said, "Then test me." A dangerous silence followed. Then, slowly, the queen laughed. It was not a warm laugh. It was the laugh of a ruler who had found a new game. The sound echoed across the throne hall. The human had passed the first test. But many more would come, and far away in the palace's deepest chambers, enemies were already planning his fall. The palace was never truly dark. Its halls glowed faintly with blue light, the walls alive with symbols of power. Guards marched at every gate, their armor shining. Servants moved quickly, heads low. But in the deepest chamber, where even light dared not enter, voices whispered. 3 generals sat around a stone table, their cloaks heavy, their eyes sharp. Behind them, flames burned in tall silver bowls, sending shadows across the walls. The first general slammed his fist against the table. "This human must not live another day." The second leaned forward, his voice quieter, more dangerous. "The queen protects him now. To strike him is to strike her." The third's mouth twisted into a sneer. "Then we strike carefully. Not with open blades. With shadows. With whispers." They all looked toward the center of the table where a small hologram glowed, an image of the human walking slowly through the palace halls under guard. He looked harmless, weak, too simple to be noticed, yet the general's eyes burned with hatred. "He is only a man," one muttered. But he touched the air, another spat. "The people already talk. They say he made her laugh. They say he calmed her when even the healers could not. Do you not see the danger? If the queen favors him, our power fades." The third general's voice was cold as steel. "Then we make him a villain. We paint him as poison. And when the time is right, we cut him from her side." Their plan was, meanwhile the human walked through the palace under heavy guard. 2 soldiers flanked him, their weapons ready. Every step echoed on the polished stone floor. He tried to stay calm, but he could feel eyes on him from every corner. Servants staring, nobles whispering, soldiers glaring. To them, he was not a guest. He was an intruder. He muttered softly to himself, "So this is my life now." Walking, cages instead of metal ones. One of the guards snapped, "Silence." The human smirked faintly but said no more. When they passed a long hall, he noticed movement, a small figure hiding behind a pillar. A pair of glowing blue eyes peeked out. The alien girl. The heir. She rushed to him as soon as the guards moved past, her voice small but urgent. "They watch you, human. Be careful." He crouched slightly so his eyes met hers. "Who?" "Everyone," she whispered. Her hands trembled. "They do not want you here. They want you gone. Some want you dead." The human's chest tightened. He looked at her, at this fragile child who had already seen too much. He forced a small smile. "Then I'll just have to stay alive. For you." Her lips curved into the smallest smile, but her eyes stayed worried. She pressed something into his hand, a small stone that glowed faintly. "This will warn you if danger comes close." Before the guards noticed, she slipped away into the shadows. The human hid the stone inside his sleeve. For the first time, he realized how deep the game truly was. This was no simple curiosity from the queen. This was a battlefield where every smile, every whisper, every look could mean survival or death. That night, the generals made their move. In the royal kitchens, a servant poured dark powder into a cup of wine meant for the human. In the armory, a guard loosened the strap of a weapon, planning an accident during training. In the shadows of the garden, a cloaked figure waited with a silent blade. The human sat alone in a chamber, staring at the glowing stone the girl had given him. His stomach growled, and soon the servant entered with the tray of food and wine. The human reached for the cup, but the stone in his hand pulsed with light. His eyes narrowed. He set the cup down, pretending to drink nothing. Later, when he trained with palace guards, the weapon he was given snapped in half, but he had already noticed the loose strap, and he moved before the blade could cut him. And in the garden, when he walked under the pale moons, the stone pulsed again. A cloaked figure leapt at him, blade flashing. The human dodged clumsily, grabbing a fallen branch instead of a weapon. The fight was short, messy, but the guards arrived too quickly, and the attacker fled into the shadows. When the queen was told of these events, her face grew cold. She listened to her advisors argue, but she raised her hand for silence. Her voice rang out, calm yet sharp. "Someone moves against him. Someone moves against me." The generals lowered their heads, hiding their smiles. The queen's golden eyes burned brighter. "If they wish to test me, they will learn the cost of betrayal." She turned her gaze toward the human. He stood silent, still breathing hard from the attack, but his eyes met hers without fear. And in that moment, the queen felt something dangerous: respect. But in the shadows of the palace, the generals whispered again, "We failed tonight, but he cannot escape us forever." The threat was not gone. It had only grown. The human had survived the first strike, but many more daggers waited in the dark. The palace burned. Flames climbed the silver walls, turning them black with smoke. Screams echoed through the great halls. Guards ran in every direction, some carrying buckets of water, others raising weapons against unseen enemies. The night sky above glowed red, the moons hidden by rising fire. And in the center of the chaos stood the human. He had been sleeping when the first blast shook the palace. The floor trembled, the air filled with smoke, and the sound of breaking stone thundered through the halls. By the time he reached the door, guards were already shouting, "Traitors inside the palace! Protect the queen!" The human pushed through, the confusion, his heart pounding. The glowing stone the alien girl had given him pulsed wildly in his hand. Danger was everywhere. But as he turned a corner, he froze. 3 soldiers stood before him, weapons raised, not at the fire, but at him. Their eyes burned with hatred. "There!" one shouted. "The human is the cause. He brought this fire." The human's chest tightened. "What? No, But the guards did not wait. They lunged. He stumbled back, grabbing a broken staff from the ground. Sparks flew as the first strike clashed against the staff. The human barely blocked, his arms shaking from the impact. He dodged the second blade, rolling to the side. The third guard came fast, but the human shoved the staff into his stomach, knocking him back. "I'm not your enemy," the human shouted, but the soldiers only hissed. "Liar! The queen will see your treachery." Before they could strike again, the air split with a scream. "Stop!" The queen's daughter stood at the end of the hall, her small figure glowing under the firelight. Her voice rang sharp. "He is not the traitor." The soldiers hesitated, confused. The human took the chance to push past them, grabbing the girl's hand. Together they ran through the burning halls. Everywhere chaos spread. Smoke choked the air, statues cracked, walls fell. Servants cried for help. Soldiers turned against each other, not knowing who was friend or foe. The palace was a battlefield. Finally, the human and the girl burst into the grand throne room, and there, standing tall amid the flames, was the queen. Her crown glowed like fire itself, her eyes fierce, her long cloak whipping in the hot wind. Around her, loyal guards fought against rebels, traitors who had chosen this night to strike. The human stepped forward, coughing from the smoke. "Your Majesty, someone is framing me. Your men think I started this." The queen's golden eyes locked onto him. Her face was unreadable. Her advisors shouted around her, "It is him. He brings bad luck. Kill him before it is too late." The queen raised her hand for silence. The hall froze. Flames crackled. Smoke curled. All eyes turned to her. Her voice was cold. "Human, why should I trust you now?" Question cut deep. If she believed the advisors, his life ended here. The human's chest rose and fell as he tried to steady his voice. "Because I could have run. I could have left your daughter in the fire, but I didn't. I brought her here safe." The girl stepped forward quickly, her small voice strong. "He saved me, Mother. He is not the traitor." The queen's eyes narrowed, studying both of them. Around her, the traitors hissed, ready to strike, their blades shining in the firelight. Loyal guards raised shields, waiting for her command. This was the moment. Trust or death. The queen's gaze burned into the humans. Seconds stretched like hours. Then finally she spoke. "Guards, protect him." The hall exploded with sound. Loyal soldiers roared, pushing against the traitors. Weapons clashed. Fire rained from the ceiling. Screams filled the air. The human grabbed a fallen blade, standing beside the queen's daughter, fighting to defend her. For the first time, he was not just a stranger in the palace. He was part of the battle. He swung wildly, clumsy but determined. A traitor lunged at him and he barely blocked. Another came from behind, but the queen herself struck them down with a sweep of her glowing spear. Her voice rang above the chaos. "Traitors will drown in their own fire." The rebels began to fall, but the fight was brutal. The human's arms ached, his breaths came sharp, but he did not stop. He stood near the throne, protecting the girl, as the queen's loyal forces pushed back the shadows. Finally, silence came. The flames still burned, but the rebels were dead or captured. The throne room was broken, the floor cracked, the air heavy with ash. The queen lowered her spear slowly, her golden eyes turning toward the human once more. He was bloody, bruised, exhausted, but he was alive, and he was still standing. Her voice was softer now, though still sharp. "You chose to fight beside me, not against me." The human wiped sweat from his face, meeting her eyes. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for her." He nodded toward the girl, who clung to his side, safe. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she gave a slow nod, not of warmth, not of friendship, but of respect. Around them, smoke rose. The battle was over, but the war inside the palace had just begun. The palace still smoked from the night of fire. Ash clung to the silver walls. Broken statues lay scattered, their once proud faces cracked. Servants moved silently, cleaning ruins with lowered heads. Guards stood stiff, their eyes sharp, as if waiting for more enemies to strike. But inside, the throne room, silence ruled. The human stood at the center, his clothes torn, his arms bruised. He was alive, but exhausted. He felt the weight of every eye on him, guards, advisors, nobles, even servants hiding behind pillars. And at the far end, on the throne of black crystal, sat the queen. Her golden eyes did not blink. They burned, steady, fixed only on him. The human's throat felt dry, but he did not lower his gaze. He had fought in her halls. He had saved her daughter twice. And yet, he knew. This was the true test. The queen leaned forward, her voice cold as stone. "Human, why are you still alive?" The question struck him like a blade, but he did not flinch. "Because you allowed it." Murmurs rippled through the hall. The advisors gasped, some even stepped back. Such words could have been his death sentence. But the queen only tilted her head. "You speak as if my mercy is weakness." He shook his head slowly. "No. Your mercy is choice. But choice brings danger. And I think you like danger." For a heartbeat, silence pressed down like a storm. Then unexpectedly the queen's lips curved. Not a warm smile. Something sharper. Something dangerous. "Perhaps," she whispered. The advisors could not stay silent. One stepped forward, voice shaking with fury. "Majesty, this is madness. He is a human, a weak outsider. He must not stand here in this hall before your throne." Another shouted, "If you let him live, the nobles will doubt you. The people will whisper louder." The queen's gaze snapped toward them. Her golden eyes burned hotter than fire. "Let them whisper." Her voice cut through the room like thunder. Everyone froze. Even the flames seemed to hush. "Let them wonder why their queen spares a human," she continued. "Let them ask why he stands here alive when others have fallen. Their fear is my power, their confusion is my weapon." The advisors lowered their heads, silenced. The queen rose slowly from her throne. Her tall figure glowed under the pale light. Each step she took toward the human echoed across the hall, heavy and sharp. The guards shifted uneasy, but none dared move. At last, she stopped in front of him. She was close enough that he could feel her presence like heat from a fire. Her eyes searched his face, hunting for weakness. "You have stood against shadows," she said softly. "You have faced fire. You did not run, even when death came for you. Tell me, human, why?" His chest rose and fell. His voice was tired, but steady. "Because someone had to. Because your daughter needed me. And because—" He paused, meeting her gaze without fear. "Because if I ran, I would never forgive myself." The queen studied him. For the first time, her expression softened. Just a flicker, just for a breath. Then it was gone, replaced by the steel mask of a ruler. She turned to face the hall. Her voice rang loud, filling every corner. "Hear me, all of you, me. All of. This human is no longer an intruder. He stands under my protection. He stands under my eye." The hall shook with shock. Guards bowed, nobles gasped, whispers exploded like thunder. A human, protected by the queen. None had ever imagined such a thing. The queen raised her hand, silencing them. Her golden eyes glowed brighter than fire. "But do not mistake this for weakness. He is no prince. He is no lord. He is mine to test, mine to judge, mine to break if he fails." Her words struck hard, but her eyes never left him. The human understood. He was not free. He was not safe. He was now bound to her more than ever. Yet in that gaze, sharp and dangerous, he also saw something else: respect. Perhaps even curiosity. The queen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "You calmed my daughter with bubbles, human. But you have stirred storms inside my throne. You do not yet understand what that means. But you will." She straightened, turning back to her throne. The crowd bowed low as she sat once more. The human remained standing in the center, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing on him. He had no crown, no power, no army. Yet somehow, in this vast alien empire, he had become something no human had ever been before. A figure under the queen's eye. The future was uncertain. The dangers were greater than ever. But one thing was clear: his life was no longer his own. Above the whispers, above the fear, above the broken palace walls, her gaze, never left him. And in that gaze, the fate of both humans and aliens had already begun to change.